What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer. I missed a little bit of news, and that is new Dark World support. So whenever new support comes out, at least like four-ish cards for a big archetype, I like to look at the new cards first, and then I review every other card in the archetype, and then finally give my final thoughts. I like to look at the new cards first because they're new, and also I think it's good to look at them more objectively because I don't really know what every Dark World card does, other than that they're a discard archetype, and then I've used a couple of them like in Infernities. But alright, so we'll start here. Rain Bew, I don't know how to say that, but Supreme Overlord of Dark World. So you get to special summon this card from your graveyard by returning a level 7 or lower Dark World monster you control to the hand. This is an 8, so you can't return this. Fair enough, fair enough. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, not win, thank goodness, you can add one level 5 or higher Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, except a copy of itself. If this card was discarded from your hand to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon one level 4 or lower Dark World monster from your deck or graveyard to either field. I'm assuming like there's some sort of negative effect when they're special summoned, so that means you can do that. But this is all like I like the idea of this archetype because you're like forcing your opponent to discard. And there's also one other card that forces like you look at each other's hands and then you discard one card from it. That card's got to be absolutely bananas in this deck because you're forces your opponent, and obviously you get to pick. If you have like cards, like spell cards, you can just set those and then activate it, then your opponent has to like basically take on a negative effect. I think that's awesome. So probably like a billion things you can do with this card, and it just seems like a good intermediate play, and there's so many ways to discard. Like in the new support also discards. It's not going to be a problem at all. So this is Dark World Puppet. Target up to 3 cards in either player's graveyard. Banish them. It's a quick play. Ooh, sick. And it says up to. It doesn't have to be 3. This is just getting better and better. Then discard 1 Fiend monster. No problem. Be great. Imagine if it negated their effects. It'd be so sick. But at least it doesn't have to be monsters. That's also a good thing. It's kind of like a good... Well, it's not exactly DD Croaks. You can't use it turn 0. But I think this card is pretty good. I think it is. But during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Then target one of your banished Fiend monsters, add it to your hand. So you can really play a Lure, you can play 3 Dark World Dealings, and that other card, I can't think of the name of it. I know it's like each player draws. Am I going to find it? Biscuits. I know there's one. I'll find it eventually. It'll just like pop in my head. I've used it before. I used to use it in like ABC Dragon because I wanted to get rid of my opponent's hand traps, and then they could discard like an ABC piece from my hand. It was like an interesting theory, but in any case, I still want to look. It's still in the back of my mind. I'm like, I want to look at this so bad. Okay, it's got to have each player in its text at some point. I'm sure someone watching this is like, I know what it is. Oh, Drag Down into the Grave. It's not an anime card though. It's definitely a real card. Oops. Dragged. Yeah, perfect. Each player reveals their hand, chooses one card from their opponent's hand, and you discard, and then you both draw a card. So this card would also just it's pretty much a Dark World card without saying it into its text. All right, we can finally move on now. I can finally sleep in peace tonight because I found that out. Dark World Ascension. During the main phase, you can fusion summon one. It's also a quick play. Okay, I don't really know why you'd want it to be that. I mean... Quick play is better than regular spells, I suppose. Fusion summon 1 Fiend monster from your extra deck by banishing fused materials mentioned on it from your field and or graveyard. Great. Whew. Banishing from your graveyard to fusion summon, good. Especially if you're discarding them and it's like one of the effects is like to draw a card. If summoning a Dark World fusion monster this way, you can also discard monsters from your hand as material. Wild. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can add it to your hand, then discard 1 Dark World monster. That's so nuts. Like, there's so many good things. It's discarding on the fusion effect, and also you get to add it back, and basically what you send gives you advantage, and then you can use it, and then you can banish it for the fusion. I like this a lot, so great stuff. We'll go to the fusion monster now and kind of see. Grapha, I'm pretty sure, is like the boss monster. Okay, so it requires Grapha. And then one of these actually, then did you say you can target one of your banished Fiend monsters? So if you banish this, awesome. Okay, so this requires Grapha and a Dark Monster. That's pretty easy to pull off. When your opponent activates a normal spell, and I wonder if it has a discard effect too, because If you could just fusion summon him by discarding this, like, and then you can special summon it. Oh, this is wild. This is so wild. This is like getting better and better. Okay, when your opponent activates a normal spell trap card or monster effect, you can make that effect become your opponent discards one card. Okay, you can only use this effect of Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Darkworld once per turn. If this fusion summon card in its owner's control leaves the field by an opponent's card, I guess by battle or card effect, you can special summon one of your Grapha, Dragon Lord of Darkworld that is banished or in your graveyard. Then each player with a hand discards one card. So like it just, what I like about this is that it's good effects. Like these cards have good effects. I've been talking about them for like 4 minutes now. These few cards, but every time you read it, I like it a lot. This one's like, yeah, it's like not bad. Like hoping that it's probably going to be good. It's just unfortunate you can't, it's not like a hand trap or something, right? I don't even know how you would make that a hand trap, but it's good going first too if you know your opponent's going to be using their graveyard a lot. Like that's definitely some advantage, but not, it's pretty interesting. These cards are probably a little bit better, and then this is like a maybe include, possibly in the side deck. But we'll read the rest of these cards. I'll read Grapha, and then we'll just go from there. So this is Grapha. You can special summon this card from your graveyard by returning one Darkwood monster you control to the hand. Easy enough, right? You can just normal summon at that point after this was discarded, like the worst case scenario. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, you can target one card your opponent controls, destroy that target. Then if it was discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, look at one random card in your opponent's hand. Then if it was a monster, you can special summon it to your field. That's pretty nice, obviously. So you're going to have 6 ways to trigger these Dark World effects. So if you can just load them with actually good ones and a lure as well to get you deeper. This is going to be like, whatever you're trying to do is probably going to be one of the most consistent things. Like in Yu-Gi-Oh! It feels like, for what I'm reading so far. Maybe I'm wrong, and obviously when you discard, you're going -1, but theoretically you're keeping up with those minuses by, you know, in this case, taking a look at your opponent's hand. Like, obviously not every time, but more than likely, like, they're going to have monsters, which is pretty nice. So, cool stuff. Graph obviously is a good card. Although it doesn't have, like, any, like, great effect, like, targeting, it's really just the discard that's so good. So I like the idea that this just kind of makes it like way more playable. And really you just kind of want your opponent to take it from your hand. I don't know. I mean, you obviously have to play it now because of this, but for some reason in my mind I thought it was a lot better. Not that it doesn't have a unique effect. Like, not only is your opponent discarding a card, but you're taking it. So it's kind of like a +2. Kind of. But this is Rainbow. I want to say it's Bew. Overlord of Darkworld. If this card is discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, special summon this card from your graveyard. When this card is special summoned this way, destroy all monsters your opponent controls or all spell trap cards they control. So this is probably something you just want to put in the side. And I think that's really fair, and I really think that you can get creative with this deck. You don't want to just like blind this, because if it just doesn't have a use, but going second, I mean, there's a lot of really cool things you can do. So that makes sense, right? When this card is discarded by your opponent, you can just special summon this. I knew that would probably be how it worked, because otherwise that text would be useless. But this is a decent one, and maybe you play it as a one of it too, going into the side, because you're going to run 3 copies of this, and it's like almost you have more copies of this card, and if you draw it, it's not horrible either. So pretty decent effect. Lucent Netherlord of Darkworld. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect. Okay, so these aren't wins. That's great. Special summon it from the graveyard. Then, if this card was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon one Fiend-type monster from your deck to either side of the field. So this is a rank 6. This is a level 6. I mean, it's a free special summon, so like, how much can you really complain? It's just like, what is this card doing once it hits the field? I don't know. But we'll move on. That one's just kind of interesting. I mean, it can be used as link material, so it's not like you're like losing anything too badly, but all right. So this is Lantanum. Okay, if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect. If this card is discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, This is a really weird text. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect. If this was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, target one fiend-type monster in your field, special summon this card from your graveyard. Then it gains 500 attack. This is, I mean, are there really, like, good rank, like, even off the top of my head, how many good rank 6 monsters are there in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh? Maybe there's, like, a lot, and I'm just, like, sleeping on this rank, but no, this is a, okay, a spell and trap negate. That's certainly not horrible. Is this the quick effect one that returns? No. I mean, I'd have to do a little more research. I just wasn't expecting there to be this many, like, 6s, and there's only 2 of them. I don't know if you're doing that. I don't really know if that's not, like, definitely necessary. Yeah, Raid Raptor. So we'll move on, but okay. Where was I? Okay. Then if it was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, your opponent returns exactly 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of the deck. In any order. Woof. Okay, so if it's discarded, it's a free special summon. But if it was discarded by your opponent returns 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of the deck. So, I mean, really, if you have, like, this and this card in your hand, like, you're just feeling really great. It's just kind of, like, like, nerve-wracking, because if you're playing a bunch of these high-level monsters, like, you better hope. I mean, you are going to play 9, like I said, 9 consistency cards. So that definitely probably fills in a lot of these gaps. I don't really know exactly what plays you're going for now outside of this. I don't know what they did before other than maybe like link climbing. Maybe you're playing like Scythe or something like that, which is like, okay, it's not bad. But if this card, okay, so we're going on here. So this is Gold Wu Lord of Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, if it was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can target up to 2 cards your opponent controls. Special summon this card from your graveyard, then destroy those targets. I don't really like the ones that are only dependent on your opponent discarding it. Like, that's, like, that's just, like, not that great. Okay, when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can discard. You discard 1 card. That's not great. Snow, Unlight of Dark World. Getting into the 4s. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, if it was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, add 1 Dark World card from your deck to your hand, then special summon that target, if any, in face-up defense position. And I know the field spell discards too, but you definitely want your opponent to discard it, and there's only like so many ways to do that. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, special summon it. So probably playing this, probably doing that for like rank 4 plays or link climbing. There's just a lot of things you could do with it, of course. This is Bro Huntsman. So if this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, you can draw a card, plus another if it was discarded from your hand to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect. So if you got like Dark World dealings and you have Grapha, and Gold, like, you're probably just like I'm not saying it's an auto win, but man, that's going to give you crazy advantage because your opponent has a really hard decision. Either they have to discard 2 cards, or they they lose 1 card at a monster potentially. That's nice. This is Scar, Scout of Dark World. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, I don't have to worry about that. It's probably an old card. Khaki, Gorilla of Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, target 1 monster in the field, destroy it. An interesting maybe side tech choice, but nothing too crazy there. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, target 1 spell and trap. Again, kind of the same thing. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, special summon this card from your graveyard to your opponent's side of the field in face-up defense position. When this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dark World card, your opponent must discard 1 card. I mean, you do give your opponent monsters, so you're technically not minusing, but they probably would rather have the card in their hand. The fact that there's like better ones of it, you know, I feel like makes it not necessary to play for sure. Because this one's just crazy, right? It puts them back in the hand, right? One of these did. Yeah, returns 2 cards, which is like better than discarding like infinitely. We all know, probably everybody knows what Dark World Dealing does. Each player draws, and then they discard. This is charge into a Dark World. So target 1 level 4 or lower Fiend monster in your graveyard, special summon it, then discard 1 Fiend monster, which can do a lot of stuff for you. Dark World Lightning. Target one set card on the field, destroy that target, to discard one card. Probably a little too niche, right? We can just literally play Harpies. And I don't think there's going to be any problem discarding something. Gateway to Dark World. Target one Dark World monster in your graveyard. Special summon that target. You cannot special summon other monsters the turn you activate this card. Great. Dark World Grimoire. During your end phase, you can discard a monster to the graveyard because you had more cards than your hand size limit. During the end phase, if you discard a monster to the graveyard because you had more cards than your hand size limit, you can target one of those monsters special on that target. It's during the end phase, though, so that doesn't really mean anything, right? All Fiend-type monsters gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn, you can banish one Fiend monster from your graveyard, discard one Fiend monster, that draw one card. So this is probably just going to be used as an engine because I guess it doesn't tribute. I definitely think you're going to play like Lair of Darkness. I think you're probably playing that, right? What's that Lair of Darkness boss monster? I don't remember. It's been a while. I can't think of the dang card now. It's like Tribute 1 Dark monster. Dark is Diablo. So how do you... Your opponent cannot tribute this card on the field and cannot target it. If a dark monster you control is tributed, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. That's so interesting. Is there an easy way to tribute these cards? You can tribute one dark monster. Your opponent places one card from their hand. Yeah, because I kind of feel like you just like this is definitely one thing that would be necessary as like an additional disruption, but I just don't think you can tribute monsters that easily. That's unfortunate. I mean, maybe there's like a link, an early link, or I doubt XIZ monsters have a tribute effect, and then you'd have to have 3, and is that even necessary at this point? It's just not the thing is just not a bad card to discard. It is a dragon though, so it's not Fiend. And this is like only for Fiend monsters. Alright, I concede. It's not good, but this is still going to be used as an engine card, right? As like a way to further your plays along. This is a trap, so target 2 Dark World monsters in your graveyard, add them to your hand. It's just a little too slow, right? Dark World Brainwashing, when your opponent monster activates its effect, if you have 3 or more cards in your hand, okay, you can target 1 Dark World monster in your field, return it to the hand, and if you do, the activated effect becomes discard 1 random card from your opponent's hand. Oh, interesting. So you have to have I mean, that's kind of unfortunate because it kind of changes the way you have to play. It's just not. It's just like not a once per turn. When your opponent monster activates its effect, if you have 3 or more cards in your hand, except during the damage step, you can activate You can target 1 Dark World monster on the field, return it to the hand, and if you do, the activated effect becomes discard 1 random card from your opponent's hand. That's like I'm saying this out loud and it doesn't sound bad. Now you'd have to have I guess it isn't a once per turn. You can just keep using it over and over again, but it's like, okay, it depends on how many cards you have. But if you have, I mean, that'd be crazy, right? If you imagine you had, which one is it? Yeah, this one that special summon at the back. So you have this on the field. Your opponent activates a monster effect. You chain this. It returns to your hand. You discard it, and then it comes back on the field. Like that would be crazy. And there's also other good applications of this. So I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty wild one in my opinion. Definitely a unique card effect for sure. And maybe you can have that many cards in your hand, or maybe if you see it, you feel pretty confident. You just play your hand completely different. But you do have to have 3 cards in your hand every time. I mean, it seems pretty niche. It feels like an anime type effect, right? And I talked about this right earlier. Drag Down into the Grave, which is going to be pretty good in this deck. So that is Dark World. I'm sure there's, there's so many ways. Like, you're going to go through your deck more than likely because you can play Dangers, right? I mean, the possibilities of, like, what this deck can do, I don't know, as it feels infinite based on, like, toolbox cards. So how well you're able to toolbox things and maybe just, like, have good things to discard as well. Like, there's got to be things outside of the realm. I'm going to do a little bit of research, see what other people are doing, and then maybe try to take a crack at this and see if I can make something at least half coherent. Let me know what you guys think about this new support in the comment section down below. Other than that, that's going to do it for today's video, and I will see you guys next time.